Welcome to Now Serving a Side of Therapy, a client's introductory guide into the therapeutic world. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. To schedule a therapy appointment, call us at 650-223-5605. For more information on this and other related topics, check out our blog at isotherapy.com, where you can also contact us through our website. I'm your host, Dalton Huckaby, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm grateful you joined me.
Absolutely. I encourage my clients. I actually ask this. There's this one question I like asking my clients, which is, when you were young, what was the first thing that you can remember that truly inspired you? Was it a song? Was it a person? Was it a book? Go. And I just done. And then, it's good because it requires the client or anyone to go backwards and really truly think about what that meant. And then the follow-up question that for me is always, okay, well, did that get you where you are here? Is there a connective thread? There may not be. But for me, it was when I heard Boston's More Than a Feeling, and I was like 8 or 5. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. And then my entire life has been dedicated to it after that.
Yeah. And, when you talk, that was Bryan Adams. No, Boston, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So still those kind of like Boston, Bryan Adams kind of songs, right? Back in the 80s, like there's some emotion to them, right? And I don't know about you, but I did not grow up in a household where it's like, oh, let's sit down and talk about your feelings, right? If anything, it was, shut up, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so all the more reason why I gravitated towards music as a way of being able to explore, emotionally explore, if you will, and try to understand what's coming up for me. And like you said, other people are kind of singing about it. It's like, okay, cool. And then I can resonate with that. And then what I think kind of the next step after that is, what is the meaning that I make of that? Right. Kind of like I alluded to earlier with the Iron Maiden song around No More Lies, right? It's like, yes, I heard the meaning is bringing up this emotions, but then the meaning that I made to that was breaking free of the chains, right? That like maybe we can, constrain around ourselves. So it's the meaning making around resonating with the lyrics that I find equally important. And so do you feel like maybe there's some kind of like some truth, some underlying truth you feel like kind of like uplift you during moments of, right? Because the music can be uplifting too, right? Even though to other people it might sound angry, right? For us, those underlying the meaning that we get out of it is very uplifting.
Sorry, what's the question? I'm not quite following.
And so so my question to you then is kind of like, what are some like beliefs you feel like for me it was like, the venom and hate, right, that people could spew out, right, that kind of like that goes, targets people, right, that maybe I care about, or it goes against my values, for example, right? Like this action that's happening in the world goes against my values and everything that I believe in. And then yet here now we have artists singing about this, kind of speaking out against it, if you will. Right. So like some meaning making stuff like around that. I was just kind of curious, like, are there any kind of like highlights of meaning that you make out of like listening to heavy metal music?
Man, it's a great question. I would probably say chaos can be beautiful. Probably a good takeaway for me on that. Because there's an art to it, being in a metal band, it's not like you can just get up and just turn your distortion pedal on and scream. Like, there's got to be something behind that. Because that's how you last. That's how you become deicide and tour for 90 years plus. Or any of those.
Exactly. We were talking about that. Like, dude, still doing this after all these years. We totally.
Which, by the way, only goes. If you want proof that metal can actually long life, that guy's
seriously. 30 years, 35 years, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like you said, there's beauty in the chaos, right? And so, for example, you can take that idea and when we are in distress or faces, the saying, when it rains, it pours, right? So we all experience that time to time when, man, it's like one thing after another. I can't seem to catch a break, right? But it's the meaning that we make out of that experience. And so to your point is, chaos, out of the, it can be, what'd you say? Chaos can be beautiful. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, again, I mean, what I think is kind of interesting too is that there's this perception that metal people are bad, are going to break windows, are going to go, you know,
Yeah, exactly. Riot and shit. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Clearly couldn't be farther from the truth because, again, as I was saying earlier, and you understand, it's a bunch of outsiders. These aren't alpha pack people. You know, they're there because they want to have a shared experience with someone that they look at as a mentor in a lot of ways. The singer, the artist, that's going to be their mentor and they're going to have empathy. By the way, I think this is amazing. So the word empathy, I just learned this, came only 100 years ago. The word sympathy has been around since the 1600s. Empathy was specifically a German word that came out 100 years ago just for the feeling you get when you experience music and art. That was it, right?
Oh.
That was it. And it was called like Ivan Fluven or something, which means to feel with. Then soon after that, everyone went, oh, well, we can just do that for anything. We can have empathy for absolutely anything. But I like the idea of specifically about music and art because that is it. When you listen to a song by Metallica or fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Rolling Stones, don't care. You're going to have that sense of, I know what they're talking about, and therefore that's the empathy, and then that's a connection that you're going to have. And if you can maintain that, another thing I'll say too is that the bands that stick around for a long time, they build trust. That's it, right? The band's never going to lie to them. They're not going to cheap them out on tickets. They're not going to do this on merch. They're not going to sing songs that aren't true, right? And then when you embolden that trust, it's the same relationship, honestly, sometimes you have with a therapist in a way, right? And that's gold. And that therapeutic alliance, you know, is responsible for like what, between 5 and 10 times the clients change anyway. Same thing with metal, I think. Yeah, same thing with metal, I think. And other genres too, but you know, this is a specific one.
Yeah, what I liked about that was, like you said, if we're listening to something and it can evoke a sense of empathy, right, or understanding, or compassion, right, or whatever it is, right? And I often kind of say I have this working theory. I have a few working theories currently, but one of them is we are with others the way we are with ourselves.
Yep.
And so if through music we can be inspired in this empathetic way, and I can feel that for myself, then I am much more likely to be empathetic towards others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I like that concept actually of a metal concert as being training ground for empathy.
Right. Yeah. And connection through that. Right. And then they're in connection through there. Yeah.
I like that too, because you can go tell somebody, it's a cool way to explain empathy building skills. Just go to a concert.
But exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, any concert, right? That you like, there's music that other people are going to like the same music as you.
And give them the psychoeducation before they go in so they know what's happening.
Yes, that's a very good point. Because, you know, what's funny is kind of like, it's almost kind of like, this almost happens in nature too when you're hiking. But like, say, for example, you're just walking down the street every day, right?
Huh?
People usually, I mean, luckily, like when I walk my dog around the graveyard in the mornings, like some people will say hi, right? But typically, more often than not, they don't, right? They just kind of walk on by, right? But when you're out hiking, you ever notice that when you're hiking, everybody's like, hi, right? Something about being in that shared environment, right? Where people just find that connection. Same thing at a concert, right? Yeah. People who might not say hi passing to you on the sidewalk, right? They're all of a sudden, hey, what's up?
You're right. It's almost like an instant MMPI, like an entire MMPI in one shot. It's like, oh,
with MMDI.
Sorry, MMPI, the multi-phase, multi-personality inventory, blah, 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 that massive thing that they give. It's basically that, because you're like, okay, I kind of know who you are based on this experience alone. Right? Like, you're a hiker. Well, that means something about you, who you are.
Oh, yes. I see what you're saying. Yes,
right.
yes. Yeah. So if we're around other people that like the same kind of music that we do, then we have an understanding that they might get some of the same points or meaning that we get out of it too.
Right. And also, you know, those mirror neurons are going to start lighting up too as well, because it's going to say, oh, you like deicide? Me too.
Yes, 100% that. Yep. Yep. So even kind of further just enhancing that sense of belonging and connection that we've been talking about. And validation too, right? Again, not only or the artists themselves kind of validating what I'm experiencing, but also other people around me when I do go to a show who
Yep.
listen to the similar things. Yeah.
On the nose. Matter of fact, actually, come to think of it, I actually helped a guy with social anxiety disorder who's a huge metal fan like a year ago. And then we worked on him going to a metal concert in and out, like just depending on how long he felt comfortable and like an exposure therapy kind of a thing. But it was fantastic because we also worked on that idea that you have to understand when you walk into that room, you can lower the social anxiety, at least to understand we're all here for the same reason. And that seemed absolutely
nice. Huh. And so they were receptive and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot, huh?
Guys going to concerts now, like we're done. It worked.
Nice. Hey, just all he needed was the permission, right? And then
that was it. Yeah, that was it.
So what else comes up for you when you think about kind of like metal music and impact on mental health? Like either from like a personal experience or from like a professional one.
Sure. I mean, I've had a lot of stories I can pull out. I'm constantly amazed. I mean, look, I'll just actually say this is so. As I mentioned, I work with a lot of different genres at Warner Brothers. Right when I was there, it was like like I said, weird indie bands or fill in the blank, didn't matter. Out of all the bands that I worked with, the best communities, the ones that were the tightest, were the emo world. So that'd be like My Chemical Romance or like any of those bands and metal. So it's like emo and metal, which is, I mean, obviously they cross over in terms of genres, but they're also the same people, right? They're the outsiders. They're the nerds. They're the guy and women who love Final Fantasy, like any of that stuff, And so it's interesting that now that I'm really thinking about it, and I'm probably making way too big of an extrapolation here, but the more extreme the music, the more the community, I think, the tighter the community. Well, it makes sense, actually, come to think of it, because if it's going to be extreme, then naturally the extreme people are going to go together to be closer together and be kinder to each other. But I don't know. I'm just riffing off the top of my head.
Yeah. I think of it as kind of like, it can be such a, when you talk about in therapy, right? Like finding your niche, if you will, right? Or in any kind of career, right? People might say that, find your niche. And, there's certainly, when we talk about subcultures of subcultures of subcultures that even exist in the metal music industry, right? Because there's so many branches of different kinds of metal music, right? And so, like you said, the kind of like lesser, like if you get kind of more to like dark metal or, or death metal, right? Then like those crowds can even be smaller, right? And so even though the band may be around for like decades on end, right, you still have Deicide playing these very small clubs, and then Glenn's out there just signing records afterwards, right? Like even though he's been around for 30 years, like that's still pretty much a class act, if you ask me, right? In my books. I don't know too many bands that do that still.
No.
But this idea of just the subculture of the subculture of the subculture just makes those communities much more tightly knit.
They really do. And those people talk to each other forever, right? It's not just about the band anymore at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, I know we keep talking about it, but it just kind of hounds in on that idea of if I feel like I don't belong, right? Or if I look different, or maybe even yeah, I wore like metal stuff when I was in high school, right? But it's like, it wasn't extreme by any means, right? But people who might feel like they want to express themselves visually in what others might seem as an extreme way, right? Whether it, whatever that might be. And so they might even feel kind of like you say, kind of cast out or ostracized or don't belong. And so once they do find others who other like-minded individuals with those shared interests, then I can't help but think of how that would kind of like lessen depression, or maybe even like suicidal ideation, right? Or social anxiety, like you were talking about with your client, right? Like that, just that sense of connection and belonging can bring so much relief.
Especially when you're younger. I have you.
Especially when you're younger.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we work with clients who are younger all the time, and we were kids, obviously. And that that moment of that person is saying what I feel is huge, right? So, like when I was younger, I was 14. I was what was it? Oh, Depeche Mode. I tend to go a little.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, I started off the new wave too
Yeah,
in my
totally into it. There's
junior
a
high
Depeche
school
Mode
years.
song that just spoke to me, right? It really did. And it was about suicide. And then at that moment, it was, oh, right, this guy's feeling that too. I am not alone. Like it kind of went into that bucket. And then that was transformative. And obviously, music does that.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Hooray for music. Hooray for metal.
Right? Hooray from yeah.
That's just critically important. I was going to say another thing, actually, too, in terms of kids. A couple of times I've actually had some kids in my office who are like 8, 9, and to get the wiggles out, I'll play some metal. We'll listen to some metal together.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
just get the wiggles out, because I mean they don't know what it is. They don't know what Master of Puppets is, but they just know how to do this.
That's great. That's great. I don't know if you saw, it's like, I think the little kid was like 2 years old, and he's in the back seat. Well, he's in his car seat. And then he's just crying and crying and crying. And the dad's like, "What do you want? Do you want like this food or this drink?" He's like, "No, no, no." He's like, "What do you want?" He says, "Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden makes me happy," like a little 2-year-old. And then his dad starts playing Iron Maiden, and the little 2-year-old starts working out, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, use that as a sample somewhere. That's a great line. That's fantastic. Yeah, and it's ingrained.
Yep.
It's taught.
Yep.
Absolutely, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like just kind of like you said, kind of that physical release. That's what I was imagining. I'm very much a visual person, so when you were describing them, just doing the wiggles, right? That's made me think about just kind of physically, just kind of getting it out of your body.
That's what it is. I want to ask you a question. What's the best metal show and or best show you ever seen?
Well, I think they'd both be applied to metal. But there was this band called Dragged into Sunlight that is really good. And the cool thing about, I think, the metal music community too, is that we get to continue to learn like about other bands. And so I'm kind of like in this this mindset of like just always learning. So anytime I hear of a new band, like I love to look them up. And so a friend of mine knew about them, and so he encouraged me to go to the show. And there's just one. I mean, they keep their backs turned to the audience the whole time.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so but just the feeling that they were delivering right from the stage was, yeah, it was pretty epic. Certainly, I'd have to, I'd be amiss if I didn't say, like, I have left a Tool show just feeling like I was like floating on air, like meeting my highest sixth sense. You know what I mean?
Of course, you're right.
After a Tool show.
Yep.
But I mean, I would even say, honestly, like, even though I was there mostly for 2 out of the 4 bands last Thursday, like during the bands we didn't want to see, I was just hanging out and chatting with friends. And again, just that moment of kind of connection. Even though the work week has been very busy, right? It's still like a way. And we were talking about that too, right? We're always like, so rush, rush, rush. I've got 20 minutes to do this, and then I got to be on da. And it's just like bam, 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 right? And so be able to kind of take a break from all that and to be able to go out and kind of connect with people around, not only kind of dealing with the stress of life, but also to like let that out through the music. So yeah, I would even say like immolation and deicide pretty much killed it last week. I literally walked away saying they breathed in new life to me. And
Wow.
yes, that's how powerful it felt. And then also being able to connect with my friends on top of it, easily one of the greatest concerts I've been to. Yeah.
That's why I call it church. That's exactly why I call it church, honestly, because it's transcendent, right? It's an absolutely transcendent experience. All your expectations go out the window of how people are. You're there in this beautifully chaotic environment, and that can breed just so much unbridled joy because all the chains are off, to use your earlier metaphor, right? You are 100% free when you're in those places, and that's when you can have that imbued empathy with not only the singer, but with everybody, because you're all in one team.
Yes. And so, say, for example, when you talk about the empathy state, I know what it feels like to be in an empathetic state, right? Like you were talking to, or I know what it feels to be in a free state, right? And so when we are not in those states, it can help us define again. Another one of my working theories is that we can often be in our heads too much, right? Around maybe regrets around the past, depression, right? Or anticipated, distress around the future or whatever. It can be anxiety, right? And so we're not in the now. And so one of my working theories is that separation of mind and body, like that disconnect, right, is oftentimes what can like make kind of like some mental health symptoms like onset, right? And so it's this idea of kind of like being in the now, that so if I know what it feels like in my body to have empathy and to feel free, whenever I'm not in those states and I feel like I might be going off course, I can catch it earlier on because I know what that feels like in my body.
Yep. Awareness.
Awareness. Yes. Awareness.
I always
100% awareness.
I'll tell
Yes.
my clients sometimes that that our bodies are the lighthouse for the emotion, right? So, something's gonna happen. Like for me personally, if I get keyed up, my adrenaline runs, so my hands are shaking, and then I can go, "Oh, I'm upset because I can't really do this here. I can only do this here." People will shake their legs all the time, so that's a lighthouse kind of deal, which is exactly what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, it is exactly, because you can start to see, oh yeah, and that's a visible somatic reaction, right? The
Bingo.
handshake. Yeah. So whether it's a visible one or kind of like an internal state of
Feeling your
tapping into
body.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, so being able to kind of tap into somatically when I know I'm feeling at my best, such as music can inspire,
Uh-huh.
and when I'm not there, and how can I kind of like get back on track?
Yeah.
And oftentimes that just means listen to more metal music to help me get back on track.
Can't go
Because
wrong.
it inspires those positive emotions that it was talking about.
It's an intervention. Metallica is an intervention. Iron Maiden is an intervention. I'm
And
serious.
I love that.
How can it not be?
Oh,
mean,
that's so good. That's so good. Yeah,
you
I
know,
will literally wake up in the morning, and I mean, after I play Wordle and have coffee, man, I'm listening to
yeah,
music, heavy metal music, to get ready for work. Absolutely.
right. Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know about you, but like working with clients sometimes when we kind of like go to like this emotional regulation place, right? It can be challenging for people to identify emotions, right? And in some cases too, it might even be, well, it's like either angry or happy, right? Like the extremes, like no gray in the middle, right? And life is so much about the gray, right? Around
Uh-huh.
this kind of emotional exploration and regulation process, right? And so I think that's what you were talking to about earlier seem to be alluding to this idea that, hey, listening to music can evoke these different kinds of emotions. And if I can maybe even use, like, for example, using music as an intervention, right? Hey, when you listen to this song, if you're working with someone and they're like, I don't know emotions, right? Just two emotions, right? Okay, well, let's see how we might be able to identify more. What emotions do you feel when you listen to whatever their favorite kind of music or song is, right? What emotions do they feel that way? So it can maybe even help them tap into emotions that way too, right? Sometimes we have to go in the back door.
Yeah, this is also why I like to encourage my clients to make playlists based on moods that they can go to. So it's
Oh, really?
yeah. So and again, like it's not just, and you're right, it's not just anger and joy, right? So I kind of work with the client of like, oh, anxiety seems to be a thing for you. So are you a music fan? Great. Are you not a music fan? Doesn't really matter. We'll figure this out. So
Right.
that's another thing too, by the way.
Together, yeah.
I think I love about this about music specifically is that everyone has a favorite song. Everybody. I don't care who you are. If a favorite book, you might not. Favorite movie, maybe not. But everyone's got a favorite song. And if you have enough musical knowledge, like you do, a good breadth, you can connect with anybody. Doesn't matter, right? And then you can have also too. This is what I love about communities in general is that they have their own language, they have their own baked-in language, right? Which is going to and that language by definition is going to kind of keep the people apart, which is what kind of the point is of that language. It's a community language, just of like metal words, right? Things that people wouldn't necessarily know if they weren't in that community per se. So that language is just like recovery with AA. You say, oh, I have 4 years. Well, no one knows what that means unless you're in AA, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that language.
And to some people who aren't to 4 years, that can be inspiring, or to some people who are after 4 years or long term can kind of look back and like, or even reflect too, right? So they can resonate at some way, one way or another.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, I think that is another, and just the dress, how people wear, what they wear, costuming, not costumes, but you wear a metal shirt, you wear a metal jacket, you're a part of a tribe now, and I think crazy important.
Yeah, and if you're out in the wild, then you can acknowledge your likeness.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Be sure to listen to our next episode as we explore various aspects of how to show up for ourselves and others by tending to our own mental and emotional well-being.